In the last few years, the financial situation in the United States has changed a lot. Many of the old rules have changed. What can you do? I'm Dan Ringer, and we'll talk about Money Smart Week right now on the Law Works.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
The Law Works is made possible by the generous support of the West Virginia State Bar, the Monongalia County Bar Association, and by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. The West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and justice system.
Federal Reserve Banks, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, the AARP, and the West Virginia Attorney General have joined together to help you understand how you can deal with your finances in the new economy. My guests are Deputy Attorney General Jill Miles and Janet Clarke, Senior Program Specialist of the AARP Foundation. Janet, Jill, welcome back.
Hi, Jan. How you doing?
Well, welcome back to you, Jill. You've been here several times. Janet, this is your first time. We're talking about Money Smart Week. What is this thing?
It is a week. It's West Virginia's participating in its first ever Money Smart Week. It's October 18th through October 23rd, and it's a multi-state event happening that we're planning here in West Virginia. And like I said, it was our first one, and hopefully to be our annual one. Hopefully we'll have another one and continue this out next year.
Where is this conducted?
We are actually having our big event was in Charleston on October 19th. At the Charleston Civic Center. And we'll have a consumer track. Actually, we have 4 different tracks that we're running. And we have a consumer track, and we expect this to be a huge event. Hopefully 450 consumers will come. We have a law enforcement track. We have a
track for social workers and lawyers,
attorneys.
and also a track for CPAs. So.
Okay, so you have professional tracks and consumer tracks.
Right.
Now, if somebody wants to register for this, how do they register for Money Smart Week?
Well, there's a toll-free number, isn't there, Janet?
For consumers, I have 877-926-8300, and all consumers. And again, this is a free event that we're having here.
So they should call to register for the event.
Call and register for the event.
Okay, and if you are a professional,
we would like you to call another number. And again, these are free events that we're having. It's 800-799-4638.
Now the professional tracks are kind of attractive because they come with
free CEUs, continuing education credits for lawyers, for social workers. We also have free in-services for the law enforcement and any kind of thing to keep your license and everything up to date.
Yeah, most professionals have some sort of continuing education requirement. Jill and I were talking about that, and when you put the word free on them, they become much more attractive for at least attorneys, because we pay sometimes hundreds of dollars an hour.
Right. And for lawyers and social workers, it's worth 5 credits. So that's a significant amount.
Right.
And again, it's free for the event.
I'm guessing this is free, is that
right? It is. And we're also
having
having lunch as well. So it's a free lunch and free CEs. I mean,
where does the idea for Money Smart Week come from? You said it's a multi-state affair. Where did it start?
Well, multi-state here in West Virginia, there'll be several events, and I think that Jill will be talking about that later, that's happening throughout the state during that week. In 2002, it started in Chicago, and it seemed like it went west with the other cities west of Chicago. And it was like a week-long of outreach, if you will, of education with financial institutions, educational people getting together to teach people how to be smart about their money. And so then this is the first year that it's gone to the east, if you will, of Chicago with the Richmond Federal Reserve. So there's other events happening in our state. That's why we called it a multi-task thing that's happening in West Virginia.
Richmond Federal Reserve Bank.
Richmond Federal Reserve
is sponsoring this. among other groups.
Correct.
In fact, there's a fairly large number of groups.
We have about 32 partnerships that have come to the table to put this together. Actually, we were talking earlier that Jill and I had gone to Madison, Wisconsin to an event, and after a 3-day seminar, there was the last person that spoke was this gentleman from Madison, Wisconsin, and he spoke about Money Smart Week. And I thought it was just wonderful to West Virginia consumers, so I brought it back, gave it to my boss, Scott Atkins, and I said, this is something that West Virginia would be wonderful to West Virginia consumers. We spoke to our constitutional officers, all their offices, the Attorney General, the Auditor's Office as well. We have the West Virginia Banking Association on board, the Division of Banking of West Virginia. We have the Library Commission on board, and again, all the constitutional offices of West Virginia.
And that's just some of the entities that are sponsoring this. When you hear that list, it impresses me as being the people who, I won't say run the economy, but people who are most concerned and involved with the economy. And they're offering a free program to educate people about how to deal with it. That gets my attention.
Right. You know what's really exciting about this week, Dan, is the fact that prior to this year, everybody was doing their own thing. The Attorney General had their educational programs, AARP ran some educational programs, the Auditor's Office, and we were all operating independently. And what's really unique about this particular week is that we all came together. And as a group, we can present a lot better program. This is our first year. We're trying to get, we've got this big event at the Civic Center on Tuesday, October 19th. And that is the focus of the week, but we also have several other events. We had a Money Smart Week contest, essay contest, and that was a contest that we offered for junior high students or middle school kids, 6th to 8th grade. And basically they were given a financial question, a financial emergency room question. And they were asked to answer that question with a 1-page essay. And their essays were due on Friday, September 24th. They will be judged. And on Wednesday, October 20th, we're having a net worth summit. And at that summit, the winners of that contest will be recognized. So that's another event that we're doing.
And you're giving away money.
And we're giving away money. Right. Actually, the winners of the contest, in each grade there will be a second place winner, and that winner will get $100 to be placed in their 529 college plan, or a plan, in other words, to save for college. First place winners will get $200, and the grand winner will get $500. But the real catch to it, and why we think that classrooms will participate, is we're giving each teacher who has a student that won $100 for classroom supplies.
So Money Smarts Weeks, you're actually giving them some money so they can prove their money smarts.
Well, we're giving them money to actually, hopefully they'll go to college and become professionals.
What are some of the topics that you're covering during the consumer part of this?
Well, again, getting back to Tuesday event, we call it a Consumer University and a Financial Literacy and Education Summit is what we're calling it. Registration starts at 8 o'clock. We have truly experts in their field coming to speak. We have Chris Hogan with the Dave Ramsey Group is going to be a keynote speaker first thing in the morning. We have Lori Schock with the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission.
The SEC is involved in this.
Carolyn, and it's free, and we're giving away money.
And it's free, yes.
And we're giving away money.
What else did you want? And lunch.
Yes, and lunch. Carolyn Rodas from Maryland, who is a mediator. We also have Courtney Bailey from the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. And we also have local experts in their field. We have Timothy Quinlan from City National Bank. We have Ann Yearling, Senior Vice President of Summit Community Bank. We also have Lauren Allen from the Division of Banking that are local people, as well as the people that I mentioned before. And we also, when I talked about the tracks, we had a consumer track that will talk about debit and credit. We have Outsmarting Investment Fraud with Christine Kiefer. The lawyer and social workers, we have financial abuse and exploitation. We also will have a panel discussion regarding that with some experts as well. The law enforcement track will talk about guidelines for effective investigation. We have a Sheriff Jeff Sandy from Wood County, who will be also talking about that. We also have a panel, Eric Goes, Assistant United States Attorney of the Southern District of West Virginia. And then we have the financial professional CPA track, if you will, and who will John Gannon will also be speaking on tricks of the trade, how financial fraud works. And
he's with the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority.
Correct. Truly an expert in his field as well. And again, all these tracks, again, we're offering free CEUs and free in-services for that. And then also, this registration, like I said, starts at 8. We'll have lunch about 1 o'clock after everyone goes through these different tracks. And they're all geared to the consumers will be hearing one thing, the law enforcement will be hearing something else. We'll all come back and have lunch. We'll have another keynote speaker, and then we'll finish it off with our constitutional officers taking questions from the audience. And again, we're expecting 450 consumers and hopefully 100 professional people in each of those tracks.
We showed some registration numbers, telephone numbers. Is it necessary to pre-register?
Yes, it is. To plan a huge event like this with so many partners involved, yes, we would like all consumers to call the 877 number and the professional track to call the other number that I had given you earlier.
We're talking about Money Smart Week to be held the week of October 18th in Charleston. My guests are Deputy Attorney General Jill Miles and Janet Clarke of the AARP Foundation. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. Jill, you work in consumer protection in the Attorney General's office. Why is this important?
You know, education's the key, Dan. Basically, at the Attorney General's office, our motto is to educate, mediate, investigate, and litigate. But if I can get somebody to stop and think before they fall for the hook, before they get taken, then that's very, very important. And I do want to mention one thing that will be taking place that I think consumers will find very valuable. After these sessions, starting I believe at 2 o'clock, we're going to have what's called a financial health fair. And at that health fair will be 32 different organizations. And they will be organizations that will do things like consumer credit counseling. They'll help you get a copy of your credit report. Very important stuff. Everybody should get a copy of their credit report so that they know if there's misinformation on that report. There are going to be people from the health department that will help people sign up for CHIP or health insurance programs. AARP, what are some of the things you're offering there, Jan?
We're actually we have an interactive session as well, where a lot of these people will also be giving out prizes and things like that. How to repair your credit score. How to apply for a mortgage loan. I mean, like Jill said, that there were 32 other people that will be there. Again, it's free to the public. Drop in, learn how it works, and again, that runs from 2 to 7.
A lot of the topics that you're covering are problems that I see in my practice of law. People come in and literally will have to pay hundreds of dollars to get the same kind of information that you're giving away during this program. The only hesitancy is you have to go to Charleston, the Civic Center, and sit there and listen to the programs and accept the information. And that's hard. People don't want to hear these kinds of things. They don't want to find out that they're not doing it correctly or that they've fallen for something and can't get up. Right. Jill, in the Consumer Protection Office at the Attorney General's office, what kind of issues are raised by the people who contact you?
Oh, we get issues all over the board. And one of the things that I do want to mention in terms of education and what we can do to help people is if they want to call our 800 number, which is 1-800-368-8808, that's a toll-free number. They can call. Every day of the week we have an attorney on call. So if you have a problem, a question, if you've gone out and bought a new car and decided that you don't want it, you can call us up and ask us what your rights are. If you've had someone come to your home and offer you to pave your driveway and had you've written a check for $3,000 and they didn't do a very good job, call us up and we'll tell you what your rights are. But any problem that consumers have with the purchase of a good or service or a question that they have about their rights as a consumer, they can contact us.
What other kinds of programs does the AARP Foundation get involved in?
We also partner with the West Virginia Attorney General's office with a program called Elder Watch, West Virginia Elder Watch. There's only one other Elder Watch in the United States, and that's located in Colorado. We partner with them to help people navigate through the consumer complaint process. You are actually speak to a counselor, is what we call them, and is peer-to-peer counseling, helping the consumer resolve their issue. So when it is back into the consumer division, they already have all the necessary paperwork, all the documentation is there, so they can easily be mediated and been very successful. And our little Elder Watch program, which is all run by volunteers, and we call them consumer advocate volunteers because they're advocating for the consumers of West Virginia. Last year, I believe it was almost $500,000 that we were able to recover, and that's just AARP partnership with the consumer division to give back to the consumers of West Virginia.
No, Dan, I mentioned to you that we believe in educating, but the second thing we do is mediating. And that toll-free number that I gave you, if you have a problem, you can file a complaint with our office. And we will actually mediate the complaint. And what Janet is talking about is that we were having situations where people were calling, they didn't want to fill out the form, they weren't able to, although they could articulate their problem verbally, they had trouble articulating it in writing. And so we refer them to one of the volunteers at AARP. And that person will actually walk them through the complaint form, talk to them, help them identify exactly what happened, fill it out for them, mail the complaint form to them, tell them what they need to include with it. Do they need a bill of sale? Do they need warranty information? Give us a copy of your canceled check. And then it comes back to us. And it has been an absolute godsend for us. Our receptionists have time to answer the hundreds, if not thousands, of phone calls we get. And the consumer gets better service.
Well, thank you, Jill.
Well, it's absolutely true.
Do you restrict your service to members of AARP or to senior citizens?
No. Anyone can call who calls the consumer division, whether no matter how old they are, they can be transferred over to a consumer advocate to help them navigate through that system. The consumer has bought something like Jill referred to as the paving, and they're mad as heck as it is. They don't want to fill out a 3-page form. They want you to listen. They want someone on the other end who is listening and is compassionate and will tell them how to navigate through this. All the necessary paperwork that is to have a successful mediation, like Jill said.
It's wonderful to have that help, because I know forms, no matter how simple lawyers, the courts, or whomever may think they are just overwhelming sometimes to people who receive them. What you might expect to be just a 1-page form really is probably 7 or 8 pages long, sometimes longer, and you do have to come up with some documents, and it helps to be able to ask somebody, what do you mean bill of sale? I've got the cash register tape here. Is that the same thing? Does that count? How do I do that? So that really, really is helpful. We're talking about Money Smart Week, to be held the week of October 18th in Charleston. My guests are Deputy Attorney General Jill Miles and Janet Clarke of the AARP Foundation. I'm Dan Ringer, and this is The Law Works. One thing we haven't talked about yet when we're talking about consumer problems, or just problems generally with your financial affairs, is time. Don't waste time. When a problem arises, if you think it's a problem, it's a problem. If it keeps you awake at night, it's a problem. Get some help. Call you, Janet, or you, Jill, depending upon what the problem is.
Right.
How many calls, Jill, do you get in the Consumer Protection Office?
We get approximately 11,000 calls a year.
year.
So that's quite a few calls.
It's almost 1,000 a month.
Right. We have 16 phone lines, and unlike a lot of state agencies, when you call our toll-free number, you talk to a person. And
yes, you do.
Right.
And thank you very much.
Right. You actually talk to a person. We have 2 receptionists, and that's why Elder Watch is such a valuable tool for us, because it allows us to, provide a better service for consumers, and also to, to handle the volume of calls. So.
Last month, Elder Watch alone took over 540 complaints over the phone that we were able to mail out to consumers. We also make it easier for them to return the complaint, because I think prior to our partnership, they weren't getting, people would send the form, you have to fill it out, now you got to mail it back. And now we provide an envelope, it's already stamped and addressed. The consumer always has to do is verify everything is correct, sign the form, put it in the envelope, and ship it back.
You also do outbound calls, right, Janet? I mean,
we do. On another part of the AARP programs that you asked about, we actually make outbound calls to warn consumers about certain frauds and scams that are happening. We were accused of cherry picking in the beginning because we were, to admit that. We were calling people in our state to warn them about certain frauds and scams. For example, the beginning of this year with the census coming out, immediately starting in January, we had what we called the senior census. And it wasn't the real census that everybody got in a few months later. It was called the senior census that were asking for personal information. And we all know that the regular census that was originally sent out did not ask for that information.
No, the census form this year was very simple.
Right.
I did get one a few years ago that asked for the number of toilets in your house and things like that. But that was a follow-up census. It was much more detailed for
no, I got that census. Yeah. I got the census that asked all kinds of questions, went through the trouble of filling it out, and then when the real census person came to my house, they're like, that was a fraud, and I had no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was called the senior census is what it was, and it looked very official. If you got it in the mail, it came with a return, address and everything on there, but it asked for personal information. And what also happened was that if you didn't turn it in, you would get a telephone call from someone saying, "Did you turn it in?" And Dan would say, "No, I didn't turn it in." "Well, that's okay, Dan. Just let me ask you a few questions over the phone." So Dan would go ahead and give that information, and then as soon as
to whom she refers is a fictitious Dan, and should be more properly apparently called Jill.
And then Dan would hang up the phone and then realize, oh, I just gave out my personal information, and then they would call us, or they would call the consumer division, and then we would get some of those complaints as well.
What kind of personal information were they seeking?
Their name, their address, some of their social security number, their local banks. I mean, it was pretty involved. It looked very, very official. We saw it, and so again, in the first part of January, we wrote a script. We started calling people to warn them about that certain fraud and scams.
Right. I mean, they were asking things like, how much is your mortgage? What is your insurance payment? I mean, things that I could not answer off the top of my head. And I filled it out. Now, I don't recall if I actually sent it in, but I did spend.
Let's hope not.
I was going to say the same thing.
Let's hope not. Well, but you know what? Anybody can be taken. And I think that's part of the message. I mean, a lot of people hesitate to call. They hesitate to say, hey, I was taken advantage in this situation or that situation. It happens to everybody.
Well, and that's a wonderful warning, because people with 2 or 3 college degrees, some of them with the word doctor in that last degree, are being taken in by these scams. Don't be ashamed if you think you may have done something incorrect or inopportune in giving out information. If that happens to you, if you're approached to give out the information, or if you actually give out some information, let somebody know about it. And I would suggest the Attorney General's office, because you've got a bit of a law enforcement function in there too,
right.
In what you do, is the correct place to call. Now, I talked about filling one out some years ago. It would have been, I suppose, during the 2000 census. And the government announced that you should expect to receive this. They sent out a follow-up census to 1 in 10 or 1 in 20 households. But they didn't ask for your Social Security number. They didn't ask for the PIN for your debit card. They didn't ask you what bank you dealt with. The general rule is, if the information you're asked for is in the phone book, it's probably okay to answer those questions. But if it's not, if it's in your wallet, or if it's in your safety deposit box, or if it's hidden under your mattress, don't tell anybody about it, and just decline to participate. If it's a real government activity, someone will come visit you because you refuse to participate. But how do you know? Education, I suppose.
Right.
And that's all about Money Smart Week. We're trying to make everyone a smart consumer. One of the other events that is happening during the week of Money Smart Week, there's different shred events going on.
By shred event, you What is that?
That you can bring your personal information, some financial records, anything that contains your personal information. You want to shred that. You don't want to rip it up and throw it in your trash can anymore. You need to have a professional shredder. AARP hosts those twice a year. And I call it the shredder of mass destruction because it can chop up just about binder clips.
I've got
anything.
an old Volkswagen. I'd like
Well, that might be a little much. But
So by shred, you mean really shred?
yes, and Consumer Credit Counseling is hosting 2 of those throughout that week, one in Charleston and then one in the Wheeling area.
Well, Janet Clarke, AARP Foundation, Jill Miles, Deputy Attorney General here in West Virginia. Thank you, ladies, very much for both being with us. Thank you also for being with us. On behalf of the LawWorks, I'm Dan Ringer. Good evening. On the LawWorks webpage at thelawworks.org, you'll find a listing of recent The LawWorks program topics and additional information about this show's topic. If you would like to recommend this program to a friend, you'll find a video of the program at the LawWorks website. You'll also find free video and podcasts of previous programs on YouTube and iTunes. If you would like to suggest a topic for a future program, or if you're a school teacher and would like to receive a free copy of this show for classroom use, send us an email to thelawworks@comcast.net.
The LawWorks is produced in cooperation with the West Virginia State Bar, the Mountain State Bar, and the West Virginia University College of Law. The LawWorks is made possible by the generous support of the West Virginia State Bar, the Monongalia County Bar Association, and by a major grant from the West Virginia Bar Foundation, promoting public knowledge of the law in West Virginia. The West Virginia Bar Foundation, the philanthropic organization for West Virginia's legal profession and justice system.
From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.